different from security data. So they're whole different worlds that we're dealing with. And there might be something else that you come up with that you think is important to society that doesn't fit very well in one of these categories. That should be included as well. These are just the normal categories for statisticians, but we don't have to, the privilege of the compass is we don't have to stay within what is considered to be the normal way of dividing things up. We just put it all together. Okay, so what I asked with the other groups is that they come to me with the data and we then start the analysis on the length and the angle, because that is what becomes important. And it will all be social data. And we don't have to distinguish in the table, we don't have to distinguish between, hello, we don't have to distinguish, we only just started, so you haven't even missed anything. Good morning. Good morning. So we haven't even started the data analysis. Okay. So we don't have to distinguish between security data and education data and health data. But what we do want with the data is things that have to do with numbers. And we also want to be careful that what we are comparing is the river basin area to the whole of Jalisco province. So that's the comparison. So we're not interested in whether or not people get cancer more often here than in Oaxaca. It's a different place. Okay, so you found some data. Please tell me some data. You have some?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me.
Population affiliated to health services.
Okay, population what?
Affiliated to health services.
Okay.
1,345,000.
Yeah.
332.
Okay, I don't need the small numbers. Yeah.
Really sad.
Yeah.
State 5 million.
Okay, so that's in the river basin area.
The first was the basin region. Yeah.
Okay. Versus, okay.
The state is 5,835,000.
Okay. Now, in and of itself, this is not really useful yet. It will be more useful if I know per capita how many people. So how many people are there in the river basin area? Because it's really the percentage of people who have access rather than the raw number of people who have access that is important. So again, this is not what is useful, is not so much whether, because I can't tell if there's 4 million people in the basin that have access to health services or affiliated with health services versus nearly 6 million in the whole of Jalisco, then that itself doesn't tell me anything about real access. The real access has to do with the percentage of people. So this has to be compared to the population of the two areas. While Alma looks that up, is there another data point? Is there another data point?
Public libraries.
Okay, public libraries.
It's not per capita. Just a number.
Right. So unless we get unless you find out what the capita, what the population is, these numbers will not be so important. Hola.
George. Hola. Buenos días.
Buenos días.
Buenos días, George. Bienvenido.
So I'm still waiting for some.
Ayer nos hiciste falta, brother. Ayer perdón los economistas. Pero teníamos aquí a Joaquín. Que nos ayudó, nomás tenemos dos economistas. Bueno, ni cuatro. Gracias. Ahorita estamos viendo lo social.
I
Así
have a different
social de
I'm
activistas.
really sorry I don't have the tabula. I
Okay.
just have
Just the raw numbers. Can you find out the population?
yeah, I have some calculation.
Okay, then that's how we make the calculations.
Yeah.
So tell me what the population of,
I have some population data too.
okay,
We also have. It is. We also have.
No me meto en donde no soy.
For the total population in the Santiago River Basin area, it's 6,327,000
yeah,
people. And for the whole state,
yeah,
it's 8,348,000.
8,348,000.
What year is this?
It's from the last,
Census.
el último censo que hicieron.
Entonces son qué, ¿el qué? ¿Porcentaje?
What would be?
Okay, so now we can work out what is per capita, what is the affiliation, what is the affiliation to health services. So we have 4,345,000 to 6,324,000. So it's roughly 4 to 6. Which is what percentage?
I have the percentage in 2005, 55%. 55.1% of the population, of total Jalisco population in this 7 municipalities, Guadalajara, Zapopan, Lagos, but that's 2005. So yours is more recent. It concentrated even more. Se puede sacar el porcentaje con respecto a la población, a la
Okay, but are we comparing only the municipalities of the river basin area, or are we comparing the river basin area versus Jalisco province?
It's the 35 municipalities, the whole people that live in the 35 municipalities versus the whole state of Jalisco.
Okay, only the municipalities. Okay, I hadn't understood that yesterday. I thought that we were discussing the Santiago River Basin area versus Jalisco province. Because if we only concentrate on the municipalities, then when we do the environment compass, we're only interested in the trees and the birds in the municipalities, not what is in between.
in between what?
Well, the municipalities are not contiguous with each other. There has to be some land in between where there's rural areas, no?
Yeah, but I guess the concept is different in Spanish. It's a program of concepts in
Okay.
English and Spanish. When
Okay.
we say municipality,
Yeah,
we say the territory. Well, she's an expert on that. She's a territory expert.
okay.
You explain it, please. Because when you say municipality, is the territory of the whole constitutional recognized territory where a population lives. And the next municipality is just.
I see, okay, okay. So it's not just urban municipalities.
Exactly.
Okay, I had misunderstood.
Okay, and the other thing important that you said yesterday that we have to, or again, underline, is that the municipalities do not coincide with the area of the basin. The basin
that's what I was worried about.
What you say about the trees and stuff, we should, I mean, in a real compass, we should only consider the trees that are.
We don't really
inside
need this.
municipalities. Also that are inside the territory of the basin, because, for example, Totonico is a huge municipality. But half of the territory of the municipality is in one basin and the other in another basin.
Okay, so this becomes an important point. We'll reflect upon what we've done as an exercise tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're doing the compass construction, we're learning the methodology. But we will learn, then we'll discuss exactly this sort of point about what are the boundary areas and what are we comparing, because this is very important. Because we want to take into account not only, because we want to really, if we're thinking in terms of ecological economics, we need to take into account the natural area, which is a whole river basin. That's a geographical measure, not a political measure. So we would have to be sensitive to that. But today we're just learning the general methodology of making a compass. And therefore, let's be alert to that problem, but we'll discuss it again tomorrow. Right now, what I'm really interested in this workshop is learning this idea about angle and about length. This is what we're concentrating on today. Okay, so population affiliated to health services is in the Santiago River Basin area is roughly 4 to 6. 4 out of 6 is 75%. And then in the whole of the Jalisco area, it's nearly 6 to 8.5. 6 to 8.5. So what is that in percentage?
Ahí está la derecha. Okay. Ahí se ven los municipios.
Sí, eso es lo que está en verde oscuro. Sofía, explícanos, ¿no? Porque es lo que está ahí. Es el área de
as well.
Sí.
Y lo que está en verde claro es área de influencia, que no está en la cuenta.
Sí.
¿No? Esto abajo. O sea, esto que está aquí,
Why don't you take the microphone?
esto que está aquí, no es la cuenca, no está en la cuenca. O sea, no está en el parteaguas. La lluvia que cae aquí se va para acá, no se va para allá, pues. Y esa parte en verde es lo que está en la cuenca, pero que está en nuestro proyecto. Luego, el otro mapa que les enseñamos ayer es la cuenca alta, que son todas, estamos a Totonico, Tepa, todos esos son de la cuenca alta, pero no está en nuestro proyecto. Y luego el grandote que les enseñé es la cuenca del río Santiago, que incluye el Alto Santiago y el Bajo Santiago, que es el que va por Nayarit. Es decir, hay ríos de Sinaloa que bajan ahí, de San Luis Potosí, desde al norte, ¿no? Entonces, todo eso empieza de allá para allá. Por eso a nosotros no nos interesa. Entonces, todos los datos, lo que dice la doctora, es que los datos tendrían que ser de los municipios, o sea, si los árboles o los peces o lo que estemos viendo tendría que ser de esta área de estudio. Si estuviéramos considerando una brújula del proyecto. Pero si hacemos una brújula de la cuenca alta del río Santiago, entonces tendríamos que considerar los otros proyectos, los otros municipios que están en el parteaguas. Entonces,
Okay, let's discuss this tomorrow.
Mhm.
Okay, this is tomorrow's discussion about the importance of the boundaries. Right now, we're learning just about the methodology to do with angle and length, and that has to do with the comparison, right? Whether we're comparing, and that what we compare to what has to do with the boundaries, but we have to choose some. We chose some on the first day. We're not going to change that choice now, because then the compass would be very distorted. So we stick to what we said, but for a really in-depth project, we would have to be very careful and have a long discussion about what the boundaries are. But right now, we're interested in a particular data point and deciding on angle and length for that data point. That's all.
Yeah, but of course I understand that, but they were asking me what you said about the data from what place, from what municipality. So that's why,
Okay.
I just.
Yeah, the Santiago, yeah, okay, yeah, okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, muy bien, okay.
Here I have a comment from Luis Guevara. Dice, de acuerdo con los resultados del Censo de Población y Vivienda 2020 elaborado por el INEGI, la población que reside dentro del territorio de la cuenca del río Santiago asciende a 8.675.489 habitantes. La mayor parte, el 82%, de esta habita en las tres principales zonas metropolitanas de la cuenca y ciudades capitales de sus respectivos estados. La ciudad de Guadalajara con 5.268.642, la de Aguascalientes con 1.140.916 y la ciudad de Tepic con 760.541 habitantes. El resto de la población se encuentra dispersa en el territorio de la cuenca en distintas localidades de menor tamaño, la mayoría de carácter rural. Esta se divide de 9 localidades con más de 100.000 habitantes, 35 de 20 a 100.000, 171 de 2.500 a 20.000 y 10.663 localidades rurales con menos de 2.500 habitantes.
Okay, I didn't understand all of that.
Let me try to translate it.
Now, well, hold on. It sounds as though you have a lot of different data points there,
Mm.
or you're
No,
discussing
that's
population.
just what we were explaining. Exactly.
It's just the
He's
population.
giving data of
Okay,
the whole basin. of the-
okay. So if somebody could calculate what is, I mean, you understand the Spanish,
Mhm.
you lift all up those figures. Please tell me what is the population of the river basin area versus the population of Jalisco province.
Yeah, entonces,
Someone calculate that for me.
That's what I told you.
Yes, I thought that was what you told me.
I mean.
Let me read it in English. According to the results of the 2020 population census
Okay,
prepared by the INEGI, within the territory of the Santiago River Basin amounts to 8,675,489 inhabitants.
right.
Most, 82% of this lives in three main metropolitan areas of the basin and capital cities of the respective states.
Sure.
The city of Guadalajara with 5,200,000 inhabitants. The city of Aguascalientes with 1,100,000 and Tepic with 760,000 inhabitants. The rest of the population is dispersed in the territory of the basin in different smaller towns, most of them rural.
Yeah.
These are divided into 9 localities with more than 100,000 inhabitants, 35 localities with 20 to 100,000, 171 localities with 2,500 to 20,000 inhabitants, and 10,663 rural localities
Okay.
with less than 2,500 inhabitants.
Okay, these details are very important for two things. One is if we're going to make smaller compasses. So if we wanted to make a compass for Guadalajara as a city, then we would, but that would be a different comparison. Guadalajara is not, as a city is not representative of the whole of the river basin area. We have to be very clear. We make one compass at a time. We don't do 8 compasses at the same time. Because we have to know what we're comparing to what. So today, in this workshop, we are comparing the Santiago River Basin area to the province of Jalisco. What happens within, how it's divided within the Santiago River Basin area is not important, unless we make smaller compasses, one for Guadalajara, one for Zapopan, one for, and so on. We can do that too, but that's a second project, not this project. One thing at a time. And again, today, to emphasize, we are interested in working the conception in French, we say labourer, travailler the concept. You work the concept of angle and length. And we do that once we've decided on a basis of comparison. That's when we can do that, but we can't do it before. And if we try to have 5 different bases of comparison, we can't do it either. It's one at a time. So I'm asking, so all of that information is important. We put it in sort of reserve, right? And we might even use it for what we call the deeper analysis afterwards. But again, how the population is partitioned within the Santiago River Basin area is not part of the exercise today. It's part of the analysis afterwards. Okay.
And I think here I have a commentary from Joel.
Yeah.
He says ¿cómo se dice promedio? Que se me fue el rollo. The average scholarity in people from of 15 years old is 9 years in the Cuenca of Río Santiago, in the basin of Río Santiago.
I
En
don't
Jalisco, sí.
understand
O sea,
the
el
percentage.
grado promedio de escolaridad de 15 años y más es de 9 años en la Cuenca de Río Santiago. O sea, gente entre 15 y más para adelante, su promedio de escolaridad es de 9 años.
¿Y en todo Jalisco?
Esto nomás me lo está dando el dato de lo de la Cuenca.
Pero hay que compararlo con Jalisco.
Sí.
A ver, es precisamente lo que estamos
Sí.
diciendo, que dice la doctora. Estamos hablando de la cuenca alta. Pues dile al profesor que eso, según entendí, esa información de toda la cuenca del río Santiago. O sea, desde Chapala hasta el Océano Pacífico, ese grandote ese que tenemos. Y eso no está, no, son como 100 y pico de municipios.
Sí, uno más, es el más grande, ¿no?
O sea, es que son 3 niveles, son 3 niveles, lo que estoy tratando de explicar para no entrar en esta discusión. O sea, existe la cuenca del río Santiago, que es gigantesca, esa no estamos viendo. Y ese otro mapa, ese es de la cuenca, esa es la cuenca de toda la cuenca Santiago. Esta es toda la cuenca Santiago. Miren, Robert, a ver, disculpa, Michelle, es que hay una confusión. Esta es toda la cuenca, miren, ¿desde dónde viene? Desde San Luis Potosí, o sea, entonces esos datos que creo que es lo que están dando. Por ejemplo, dijo, las tres aglomeraciones de ciudades son en Guadalajara, en San Luis Potosí y en Nayarit.
Sí, no, es este pedacito de abajo.
Nosotros nada más estamos de aquí a acá, o sea, esta es la cuenca alta del río Santiago, este pedacito. Ahí tienen que estar los datos, porque si nos vamos a la otra, pues ya no se pierde el compás, o sea, ya no
Y
sirve.
microcuencas, ¿cuántas?
Así es, entonces todos tenemos que centrarnos acá, que es el otro mapa, o sea, el mapa verde que estamos tampoco nos sirve. ¿Por qué no nos sirve? Porque es nada más el territorio del proyecto. Lo que estamos haciendo hoy en la sesión con la doctora es de la cuenca alta. Entonces ese otro mapa, que nomás que no está delimitado, a ver si regresa el mapa, el otro que tenía ahorita.
Ahí está abajo abierto.
Ese no nos sirve, porque ese son nada más como 16 municipios de nuestro proyecto. Vean lo que dice arriba. Dice que área de incidencia la propuesta, ¿cómo se llama nuestro proyecto? Incidencia para la generación hidrológica y la reapropiación comunitaria de la cuenca. Eso es lo que estamos trabajando con SOP y con Alan, con ellos. Pero esta no es la cuenca alta, estos son algunos municipios de la cuenca alta.
Porque aquí me están diciendo que en el Alto Santiago son 30 municipios.
Exacto, son como 35, no sé, 30, 35. Entonces el otro que estaba es...
Y en la cuenca
38,
baja
¿no?
son
Perdón,
14.
ustedes saben más. Son
Sí.
38, ¿no? Ok.
38.
El otro que estaba, no el otro, que estaba antes de
El
ese.
punterito. No, ahí está abierto. Esa es la derecha. Ese, mero.
Ese, miren. Miren, la cuencotototota viene de la Ciudad de México, a ese puntito ahí se llama las lagunas de Almoloya. Llega por todo, por Michoacán, ¿cómo se llama? Por Guanajuato, Michoacán, ¿no? Querétaro, todo eso. Querétaro lo está trabajando Griselda. Llega a Chapala y de ahí empieza el Santiago, que es todo eso. Entonces de aquí empieza el Santiago, esto clarito. Pero nuestra red de estudio es el Alto Santiago, que es hasta la ciudad de Guadalajara y San Cristóbal de la Barranca. Entonces hace falta una delimitación de eso, un mapa que nos diga los 35 municipios que están ahí. Y eso es de donde estamos haciendo la...
Profesor, en el estudio de Bolio tiene bien marcado los municipios, de hecho.
Pues ese mándaselo así que para que lo vean.
Páselo a mí para que lo ponga en la pantalla.
Sorry, you said that later,
I
but
understand.
I think it was very important.
It's very important also for scientific reasons, okay? Because otherwise you can mess with data very badly, all right? So one way of messing with data is I say, I'm going to compare number of children at school in, I don't know, this a very wealthy part of Guadalajara to number of children that go to school in Burkina Faso, in a small village. They don't go to school. Okay, and that's a comparison I can make, but I don't tell you that that's my comparison. And then I say, oh, the scolarity is really superb in the river basin area. Yeah, I misrepresent the data. So it's important for scientific reasons that we stay with the same comparison, the same baseline, the same idea of what are we comparing. So otherwise the data is useless because we're not comparing the same thing to the same thing. Okay, so yeah.
We have here another data.
Okay, hold on. Let's just do one data point. We haven't even done one yet. Okay? So the one, please. Okay, please, let us try to do one data point. Now, for that data point, we need to have an angle and a length. Otherwise, we have not done an analysis of a data point. We haven't even done one yet. Okay, so let's try to do one. We have this one about access to health services.
Now I have the percent.
Okay,
It's 68%
good.
for the basin region
Yeah,
and 68 for the whole state.
okay.
But the national is
Forget national. We're not comparing national. This is what we've been talking about for 20 minutes. So just stop it. Okay, I don't care about national. Okay, so it's the same, right?
Yeah.
So this is important. Access to health services is the same percentage in the river basin area as it is in Jalisco province. Good. So this tells us something about the length. So let me just write down that. What does it tell us? Okay. Well, we're asking about the comparison. So yes, the comparison is the same, right? So so in that sense, it's 10. What do we want to learn from people that are affiliated to health services? What does that mean? So that means that they have access, but it's not 100% of the people. Yeah. So if it was 100% of the people, everyone really has access, then that would be a very different sort of number. But what we also learn is that there's no big difference between the river basin and Jalisco province. So we shouldn't be expecting 100%. You see? So if we were in Switzerland, we would say 100% is normal. Okay. If you're in Bangladesh, maybe it's much lower. So 68% is not bad. But we should also not expect 100%. So it shouldn't be 10, but because it's not 100%, it could be better. But it's also not 0.68 of the radius, you see, because asking for it to be 100% in the river basin area does not make sense when we compare it to Jalisco province. The fact that it's tracking the same is not bad. So maybe we make it 0.8 or 0.9. Does everyone understand the reasoning? This is important.
I didn't understand. So if we are taking the baseline of 68%,
Yeah.
that should be our radius of 1, right?
No, not necessarily. Because we think about what does access to health services mean? It could be 100% for both Jalisco and for the river basin area. It's possible. If we were in Switzerland, it would be 100%. So it's a failing, it's an equal failing in both Jalisco province and in the river basin area. But to make it 0.68 of the radius would not be realistic. You see, that's the point. So we don't want to say it's 0.68 of the radius, because we don't want to say what we expect is 100%. Because this is what is happening in the region. So we make it a little bit more than 1.68, but not 10. Because it is access to health services after all. So it's something, it's a common good that everybody should enjoy. So maybe we make it 0.8 or 0.85 or something like that. Okay. Now also, we haven't even discussed which general quality it belongs to. Access to health services. Does that belong to harmony, to discipline, or to excitement? Excitement, why?
Because they're improving access to a resource.
Okay, so this is something that, because health services are something that we bring to the population that is not sort of found naturally in the population. It's not a normal thing in the population. Or is it something that is, so how normal is it to have access to health services? This is an interesting question, right? It's not easy to answer. And they are health services, so they are something, it's our science and it's our infrastructure. We need both things. We need to train a population to bring those health services. So in some countries, it's considered to be, in more socialist countries, it's considered to be very normal to have access to health services because it's just normal for citizens to be healthy, to have the possibility to be healthy. In other countries, maybe it's more exotic. It's exciting. It's a new thing. So I don't know in Mexico whether this is exotic or whether it's normal.
But just because of the fact that it's brought by men, it shouldn't be the excitement.
You're thinking like the trees again.
Yeah, no, I shouldn't. I just think
About
from
society.
From the perspective of
Society, that's right. You're thinking about yesterday. So you're right that for environment, if it's man-imposed, but everything is man-imposed in society.
Yeah.
So it's really think about what does harmony mean in society? It means society functions well. It just goes along. Things happen. People get jobs. People function. They go to school. They do some stuff. The society just sort of moves along. There isn't big political conflict. Society just does its thing. People reproduce. They get married. They get divorced. But divorces may be indiscipline. But things just sort of roll along in a normal, harmonious way. In discipline, this is the hardships of society. This is when a disease attacks, such as COVID-19. This is when there are big suicides, when there are political conflicts, when there's a loss of a language, so a culture dies. When you kill off a culture, when when there are big social problems. What does excitement mean? This is the growth of society. This is when there are maybe new medical procedures, new things that help society, help people to become healthier, new technology, new infrastructure that boosts the society up. There are new festivals. There's new culture. Maybe there's a new music that comes out, you know, a new music movement or a new art movement that comes, or important festivals that are new festivals. So the notion of new, the notion of enhancing the culture, bringing the culture up, bringing the medical stuff up, bringing new security measures maybe, would also belong to excitement. Okay, I should have maybe discussed this a little bit at the beginning. So now we're still discussing access to health. And we're not thinking as trees and birds. We're thinking in terms of society.
In terms of humans.
In terms of humans, right? So just think in terms of humans. Does access to medical services, does that belong to harmony, to excitement, or to discipline? Harmony. I'm in agreement. Okay. All right. So we put it in harmony. And now we have to decide on the length. Now it's only 68%, but we decided that the baseline, we want to compare it not to Switzerland, but to the whole of the area. And so the 68% would suggest 0.68 of the length of the radius. But Jalisco province is the same. So we should be realistic and not expect 100% to be 10. So we make it a little bit more than 68. It could be improved, right? So we want to leave a margin for improvement, but maybe we make it 0.8, right? Because it's not bad, but there's room to move. So we make it, say, 0.8 or 0.85. Now the angle. Okay, so we're sitting within harmony, which means from 0 to 120. Right? So towards 0 is towards excitement, and towards discipline is 60 to 120. So what about the angle? Is it just normal for people to have this, or is it exciting and exotic for people to have access to medical services? Or is it something that is, you know, a burden upon us? It's difficult for us, an imposition upon us.
I think it's something that everybody should have access. But maybe it's theoretically that a huge percentage, 20% don't have. Even in these times,
Right,
right. COVID times,
right.
we need it.
That's right.
We need investment for it.
So it is a little bit exotic, right?
Yeah.
Because not very many people have this access. So it is towards excitement.
Shouldn't be towards discipline because symptoms is stress.
That has to do with the length. You see,
Yeah.
the length tells us that it's not good enough, that it should be better, you see. But now we're thinking about the quality of this, not how much, but what is the quality of this data? And the data is that there should be more people. So we're still working on one data point. This is why I wanted to stop all the discussion before, because it takes a lot of time. So it's something that not everybody enjoys, right? 40% don't have access to this, or 35% don't have access to it. So this is not very good. And so it is a little bit exotic. It's a good thing to have access to it. And so we might move it towards excitement, but the length is not at 100%, right? It's not as good as it could be. And so it's the length that tells us that it's not good enough.
So
So,
if there's, I'm so sorry, if there's a lack, even there's a less percentage, you should still go towards, more towards excitement?
because the people who do have access, it's a exciting thing for them. It's not a hardship. It doesn't prevent their. So we're talking about the people who do have access, not the people who don't.
And if they, okay, and in which case would the electric actually go towards?
If it becomes a hardship, right? So if for example, if everybody is forced to be vaccinated, or if everybody is forced to have tests every week, then maybe that would move towards discipline.
And yeah, I understand. And for in this example, how can we say the vector should go to? I don't make myself clear.
Yeah.
So we are saying that if less people has access.
Well, careful. We're talking about the people who do have access,
Okay. Okay.
not the people who don't.
Okay.
We can deal with that in a different statistic.
And if more people has access to it, then it will go towards discipline.
No, then the length will become higher.
Okay.
The length, so the number of people, the percentage of people who have access is expressed in the length.
Okay.
Now we're discussing just the quality. Is it something for the people now that have access, not the people who don't have access, but for the people who do have access? Is it, I mean, you mentioned earlier that this has to do with science, it has to do with infrastructure, it has to do with things working quite well. It's something that is considered to be a public good. By Alma, she thinks everyone should have access to health services. So this is something that belongs more towards it, and it's not something that makes people sick. It's something that should make people better, right? So if you have, the sooner you deal with a disease or a problem, the better. It's better because otherwise people they get more sick. So that's why it should be towards excitement. But it's good to have this. These discussions are very important. You know, so you were asking exactly the right questions. So it should be towards excitement. And now how much? It should be fairly normal, right? So then it should be fairly close to 60%, but towards excitement a little bit. So I don't know, let's make it 50 degrees or so. Does that make sense?
60.
60 is right in the middle of harmony.
So it's a little bit to excitement.
So then it should be more like 50 or 40.
50. Yeah.
50? Are we in agreement? Yeah.
Just sorry. Yeah. So the quality is given by the x-axis. We say no.
No. The quality is the angle.
It's just the angle.
It's the angle.
Okay.
The reason I talked about x-axis and y-axis had to do with length, and that's the y-axis.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's got nothing to do with the quality.
Yeah.
So the quality is not represented in a graph. That's the whole thing about the compasses. We don't have this.
Yeah.
It's just the angle between 0 and 120.
Okay.
Yeah.
So could you explain it again? Why is in a harmony? Why?
Why access to health services is in harmony? Because, well, what would you suggest otherwise? So I just want to know what you're thinking.
I just can explain why where quality is any data. For example, the access to the service. I don't know, maybe. maybe could be a discipline because it's something that the government has to give to the population. I don't know.
So you might be thinking that, for the government, it costs money to provide this health service. That's a financial problem. So that would be in the economics compass. And in the economics compass, it might well be in discipline. You see? So what's interesting, very interesting, is that the same data might show up in the economics compass, it might show up in the environment compass, it might show up in the social compass, and have very different analysis. So here we're thinking about society. And for society, now indirectly you might say, well, the taxes go towards this and blah, 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 blah. But that's the financial problem. So we're not worried about that. As a society functioning well, access to health services means that if I start to feel sick, I have access to a doctor. That just helps society roll along normally, right? So society can just function in the way society should. If people are all sick, you don't have a society functioning. People can't go to work, they can't look after each other, they can't look after themselves, they start to die off. That's a collapsing society. Not a healthy, normal society. So to keep a society normal, we ask for them to have access, for most of them or a lot of them to have access to health services. Because that allows people to go for their jobs, to get married, to have children, to, all the things that happen in society, visit their parents and so on. If they're all sick, they can't. So that's why we think of it as normal. Okay, and we thought it should be towards a little bit excitement, partly because we noticed that not everybody has access. So, and because it takes a certain amount of social infrastructure to provide this access. So, but not very much, because again, if the society is very ill, if they don't have access to health services, now they might have access to informal health services, right? We leave that aside. We're giving formal health services. If they do have access, then this helps the society to just roll along and be a normal society. So we're keeping it close to the middle of harmony, but towards excitement, because it's exciting and it's a good thing. So we make it maybe 50 degrees or 45 degrees or so. So that was one data point. Let us move to a second data point.
We have something here.
Okay, good.
So we have the data related to individual inhabited households that have water infrastructure.
What does what you mean? You mean
Like
plumbing at home?
yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. So
Sanitation.
okay. Okay,
Residual wastewater services.
Okay. So number or percentage or number?
It's percentage, right? Yeah. Well, I have the number and I have the percentage in relation to price.
Okay, give me the percentage of people, of households.
Okay, González, in the basin,
Of households with wastewater facilities. Wastewater facilities, which means that they have plumbing. Okay, good. Okay, percentage of people in,
so it's more or less 50%
okay,
in the basin.
percent in basin. Okay. And in Jalisco
In
province?
Jalisco, I consider Jalisco as 100%, but no, I shouldn't. I took Jalisco, the number of households that have the facility as 100%, but no.
No, because the river basin is part of the,
That's true.
so,
Yeah.
so even if everybody outside the river basin
Yeah.
has it, it would still be only 75% or so, right, or
Okay.
85%.
So I need to work out those numbers. then.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Now, it might be the same, it might be around 50% for Jalisco province.
So for instance, in Jalisco is 16,000
Yeah,
and in the basin is 8,000.
right.
So 50% of what is in Jalisco is in the basin.
So you compare it, so it's 15,000 in Jalisco?
16,000 in Jalisco.
Okay, 16,000 to, what is the population? It's 8,000,
Whereas in the basin,
yeah.
8,000 have access.
Okay, you would have to work, now this is different from the population of Jalisco, it's the number of households. So you have to find out the number of households in Jalisco.
I haven't. You have it? Yeah.
Oh, okay, Alma has it.
In the Santiago River is the households.
Yeah,
In the basin, there are 2,182,000. And in Jalisco is 2,960,000. Just I can convert it to percentage. Yeah.
okay, so in Jalisco, what is the number again?
For households
Yeah.
in Jalisco, it's 2,960,158.
Okay,
It's Jalisco.
and in the basin area, it's 2 million.
2,000,002 is 2,182,000.
Okay, that, the exact number doesn't matter.
What's our number?
Because by the time you do the normalization, etc., the arrow becomes really, it's half a centimeter, you know, so it doesn't matter.
I was just excited that I have numbers now.
Okay, so the number of households outside the river basin area is only 1 million. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so our statistic is not complete yet. We need information about Jalisco province, whether or not 50% approximately have wastewater facilities. Yeah.
Well, the difference in the households is 777,000.
Right, right, nearly 1 million, yeah.
Yeah.
Huh, okay, so that surprises me.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought that there were more. Okay,
No, it's concentrated
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
because it's.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, very good. So that's it, that's interesting too. So it's probably not very different with the households outside, probably maybe 45% or maybe 35%. So out, because they're going to be households that are not in the municipalities.
Right.
So they're going to have less facility, less sewage facilities in general. Okay, so wastewater. So let's discuss now. So attention. So let's discuss now this notion of having some sort of wastewater facility in your household, in your home, in your building where you live. So does this belong to harmony, to discipline, or to excitement? Harmony. Okay. Now, the length, we only have 50%. So that means 50% of households do not have wastewater also. 50%. Not very much. Is it correct? The data?
15 or 50.
50.
50.
Yeah. 15 it wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
I've seen Guadalajara, their houses, they have plumbing. There's lots and lots of houses. So I'm surprised it's as low as 50%.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm skeptical about the data, but skepticism aside, so it's only 50%. So that means that the legs should not be very long, right? So we're talking about the people who do have this. And there's not very many of it. It's only 50%. Now, it might be normal for people living in a fairly rural area not to have this, right? So we might accept that, and they're used to it, and it's okay. So maybe it is. So we'll discuss this next time also. Is that your worldview about what is okay and what is normal is going to change how it is that you see the data. But you know, so we're a small group of people. We want to sort of agree. It's not really okay, even for somebody who's a farmer outside, to have no proper waste management. Even if it's a septic tank, you know, you don't need to have it hooked up to the main waste treatment facility, but you should have some sort of septic system on your property. It seems that is even missing. Yeah.
No, makes sense to me because even in rural areas, you can have some percentage, but not the whole service as different in the urban areas. So yeah, makes sense that someone in rural areas have, I don't know, just one thing that doesn't have a good infrastructure.
Right. So the statistic that we see might not be talking, it might be how many people are hooked up to the main infrastructure.
Yeah.
Now, it might be unrealistic I mean, even in the US, we had a septic tank on the farm, right? It wasn't hooked up to the main system. And to put in tubes to hook up to the main system for every farm, that might be just crazy. It's enough in terms of health of the person.
No.
In terms of waste management on the farm, having a septic tank is enough. You know, that works. So that's a tank on the property that cleans the water. So you do the waste management on the property, and that is okay. Now that's an interesting question. How many farms have this and how many don't have this? Because to expect everybody to be hooked up to the main infrastructure, that might be a very silly idea. Because to put in the tubes for all of this and then make a centralized waste management plant for somebody who lives up in the hill somewhere, it makes no sense. It makes much more sense for them to have a little septic tank on their property. But you have to make sure that they have the possibility to have this, right? So there has to be the funding, the possibility, for somebody to install the septic tank, for the septic tank to be managed. And so those are interesting questions. Now but let's just deal with this one statistic that only 50% of households have access to have a wastewater facility. So we found this a little bit surprising, but we remembered that it won't make sense for a lot of households to have access to the main infrastructure. And therefore, the length should maybe not be, it shouldn't be too low. So what do we do about the length?
Maybe 4.
Okay, so we have a suggestion of 0.4. So it could be much better. We don't expect 100% because as we said, it doesn't make sense for every household to be hooked into the main thing. But we might want maybe 80% of them to be hooked into the main thing. And there's only 50% of that 80%. So that would suggest something like around 0.4, right? Any other suggestions about length? 0.5. So we're about halfway to what we should be. Okay. So let's compromise 0.45.
Yeah.
We can do that too. So this is part of the protocol. 0.45. All right. Now, what about the angle? We've decided it's in harmony. So it's between 0 and 120. So again, we're talking about wastewater facility within the household. Is it something that is just normal? It allows society to function properly. It allows for health to be normal. Is it something that is towards a hardship, maybe makes us, is a bit challenging for us? Or is it something towards excitement? You know, say.
I would put it towards discipline, because if I talk in transversal way, it affects health.
Mhm.
Yeah, mostly health and personal care, and mostly for women. They do need to have a good service, sanitary service. And I think I will put it a little bit in discipline, because we're not, it's harmony, yeah, because we have to have it in society, that service, but we're not doing it the right way.
No, careful, because the lack of it, the problem that a lot of places don't have it, that's dealt with in the length.
Yeah.
We've already discussed that.
Okay, so
So now we're talking about people who do have access.
we have
So those little people in that little part of the arrow that's there, that's struggling, that they get access. Now, is that towards excitement or is it towards discipline?
So you will get a little bit like the access to health, I think.
Yeah.
A little bit to side.
That's right. That's right. So again, maybe we'll say 50 degrees or so. So it should be sort of normalized. It should be right at 60%, but it's not. Okay, does everyone understand that? How we came up with that number, that angle? Is everyone satisfied? Okay, so there are protocols also. So notice how we discussed this. We had a long discussion, and then we decided on a compromise idea. And with a larger group of people, the discussion might be longer discussion. And one way that I have dealt with, because the social statistics are much more subjective. What's considered normal? What is considered what we should be really aiming for? And one way of doing it is to, if you have a room of 100 people, you can ask them. So we all decided it should be in harmony. And now within harmony, how many people think it should be towards discipline and how many towards excitement? And then you divide your 120 degrees, 30% think it should be towards discipline and the rest, 70% think it should be towards excitement. And then you just divide the number of degrees that way. So that's one protocol. There are other protocols you might just discuss. Sometimes what is effective is if you show people the compass and you move the arrow and you let them see it, because there's a color involved. And you can also do a compass where the colors fade into each other. So you let that emotion of the color speak to them. So you move it around and you say, okay, you're suggesting the arrow should be at 40. This is what it looks like. This is the color associated with it. And then people start to react. And that's another type of protocol for deciding on the angle. These are different techniques.
And you have colors designed for
Yeah, well, you have it fade, right? It's not a separate color, right? You don't have yellow, blue, green, pink, right? But you saw the colors that I had, but you have them fade into each other, so they bleed into each other. And so sometimes people react to that in a nice way, maybe not. It depends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just, possible if we can do that, rather just with word harmony and excitement, discipline.
Yeah. So this is harmony. This is discipline. And this is excitement. Okay, let's have one more statistic. We had two health ones, yeah.
So right now, I actually gave statistics related to those people that have wastewater facilities, the house.
Yes,
I have the complementary one,
yes.
which may probably mathematically, I'm not sure it makes sense, but I can.
Well, tell me what it is, yeah.
So those individual inhabited households that do not have wastewater facilities in Jalisco is 0.7%, whereas in the basin is 0.3%.
That doesn't make a lot of sense.
That's what I was saying, yeah, because it should be complementary. Both things are at once. Isn't it?
Well, you see, then, and then again, you see, then it becomes very important what the name is for the statistic. So it sounds as though it's the complementary one, right? The opposite.
Yeah.
But it's not, clearly, because the numbers don't make any
So
sense.
makes sense.
So maybe what we mean by, so maybe what they are talking about is that they have not even a septic tank. Because if it's 0.0,
Yeah. Okay, let me give the description.
yeah,
Okay. So the description is individual inhabited households that do not have drainage. It englobes those individual households that which are classified as a single house per terrain, or a single house that shares the terrain with another house, or duplex, or an apartment or building.
and they don't have any pipe that takes
Don't have-
water out.
Exactly.
Okay,
So
so
that's
they
the
have to
definition.
bring water from outside, put it in a bucket, and then throw it out themselves.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is exactly what we talked about. It's not the complement of that,
Yeah.
because in between,
Yeah.
you have people that have a septic tank or have some system of drainage. Maybe it just drains into the stream outside the house, but they have a pipe that goes to the stream. So they have some sort of, and maybe they have water that comes from the stream into their house. So they have a pipe of some sort. Okay, so that's all the people in between. So this is a separate statistic.
Okay.
If it were exactly complementary, then we wouldn't include it.
Yeah.
You see, but now it's a separate one.
Okay.
So let's include that.
Okay.
Okay, good.
How should we label it?
So we say households with no water in or out, or no piped water in or out. No piped water in or out.
Exactly.
So you have to go by hand with a bucket. Okay.
Eso cómo se dice en español.
¿No tienen agua?
No
No tienen agua.
Okay, so what are the numbers?
So in Jalisco,
Yeah.
is 0.7%,
Okay.
and in the basin is 0.3%.
Está George. George.
Okay. Good. So should that now belong to harmony, to discipline, or to excitement?
Basically,
Good. Because it's a hardship having to take water from outside and bring water in. So this belongs to discipline.
One question.
Yeah.
Remember we were talking about this issue in Barcelona about the women. What happened with the women when the water was introduced into the homes?
Yeah.
Should that be for change the direction of the arrow? The fact that women can, when they go and get water, they can socialize and talk to each other, and then when the water was introduced to the homes, then they couldn't. They were basically.
Yeah. Okay, so the story was this, so this was a story that my parents knew about from India, and there was a NGO, a non-governmental organization, that thought that they would make life easier for the people in a village by giving them piped water to each of the houses. Because it's a lot of labor. You have to go to the well, you have to pump the well, and you have to, and it's women that carry the buckets, right, back to the household, and then they do the washing, and they have to throw the water out, and then they go back to the well to get some more water and so on, and it's a lot of labor. So the NGO said, we're going to make life easier for you. We're going to install pipes so that the water goes out and the water goes in. And they thought they were doing a very good thing. But the women in the village became very depressed. Oh, labor was being saved. Why were they depressed? Because when they went out to the well, they gossiped. They talked to each other.
right,
They found out, oh, how is your child doing? You know, they talk
they socialize.
and they socialize. But when they're at home and they have no reason to go outside, this was their one way of communicating with people. They become alienated and they become depressed. So it was a good thing in terms of labor saving, but it was not a good thing socially. Now, we're talking about tiny percentages here. We're talking about 7%, 0.7%, 0.3%. So this is a tiny percentage. I think maybe we disregard this aspect. If it were a bigger percentage, then we would know that this is part of the lifestyle of these people. But 0.7%, we're talking about in 10 people, not even one person is doing this. So it's probably not part of a social setup. But we might ask the question, if it's very concentrated in one place, that everybody uses the village well, for example, maybe there is a social issue to discuss. But again, because the percentages are so tiny, 0.7%, right? In 100 people, not even one. So, or 0.3%. In 100 people, not even one. We have, in 300 people, we have one person doing this. So I think the social aspect is not relevant here, but we do want to ask those questions. Is when we make things easier for people, maybe it's not the best thing for the society for some other reason. But let's leave it at
May I
that.
comment on this?
Yeah.
See, this is a very important issue because this is one of the feminist position, and
Right.
and I mean it's understandable that most in the world, most of the work, the labor related with water is made by women
That's
all over
right.
the world.
That's right.
And in Africa, for example, women walk, I don't know, 1 hour to get one bucket of, and they have to carry and all this.
Yeah.
So the question is, okay, this principle that looks logic and a good thing for women in our context.
Yeah.
If for in the history of Mexican water distribution, the access to water in their homes is considered a progress, something
Right.
that, you know, all the governments want. And
Right.
even you can find in Guadalajara, you can find the places where people were to get water. I don't know the history of Guadalajara, what role women played in that process.
Right.
It would be a very interesting research to see,
Mhm.
you know, how the labor was used in water distribution in Guadalajara.
Salían
Ajá.
afuera de las calles,
Ajá.
pasaban como con burros cargando el agua
Ujú.
y salían las mujeres con sus trastos para llenarlo yo pienso que a mediados, finales del siglo XIX, aquí en Guadalajara hay fotografías de
Las
eso.
fuentes,
Sí.
las fuentes eran para eso. Se concentraba el agua y la gente
a inicios de siglo.
agua de la fuente.
A inicios de siglo.
El siglo pasado.
Sí, de hecho inclusive todavía hay algunas fuentes, por ejemplo está la caja de agua de ahí de Avenida, donde está el Hotel Diana, enfrente del Hotel
¿Dónde está
Diana.
Recoveco?
Exactamente, ahí está una de las cajas de agua más antiguas que hay en la ciudad. Está, yo conozco otro donde
Todavía
le
se
regalan,
paran, todavía se paran las pipas ahí, ¿no?
sí, y yo conozco uno donde a la gente le regala el agua atrás del manantial donde está la cervecería Modelo. Ahí
Ahí
llega la gente y llena sus garrafas, pero bueno.
Okay.
But the reflection is towards the values behind all this.
No, okay, so that's right. But let's be very careful now. We are talking about a very small percentage, 0.3%, not even 3%. Not talking about 3 in 100. We're talking about 0.3 in 100. 1 in 300 people. Right? So we're not talking, and so already that change has been made. Now, we might ask the question, in the past, are women still feeling alienated because they're not doing the water thing, or has something else taken over? That they belong to clubs, that they gossip in some other way, maybe they use telephone, maybe they meet for other reasons in other ways, right? This didn't happen yesterday, so something else has probably taken over.
Yeah, to understand you, it's really relevant to take two things in account: the culture and the time,
Good,
and the context, the
Good.
cultural context of the time. The
Excellent.
thing here with women with water is not like 80 years ago, where you can have all this space where you can co-live and socialize in these places. Right now, it's a place of vulnerability to women.
that's right.
From 30 years until the present.
Okay,
So we have to think in terms of what is the context now,
good.
and the cultural context.
Les está quedando bonito.
Yeah.
Exactly. Very good.
And this is really useful for political issues, for public.
Exactly. And so that's also why the social data is more subjective, is more vulnerable, and is very contextualized. It's important to have a sense of what is going on in the culture, what is important in the culture. And that's why the social data is very important to know what people actually think, and not just what the academic thinks in their little office, but how are people really feeling this? And does it matter very much? Maybe it doesn't, I don't know. And I can't tell from my office. So this is why the social data is the most sensitive. So let's now decide on, we have in the whole of Jalisco, it's 0.7%, and in the basin area, it's 0.3%. So in the basin area, there's fewer women or fewer people who are having to get water from outside. There might be some men having to do it because they live on their own. They don't have to, don't have to wait. So let's decide on the length. Now, again, it's very small percent. So maybe it's not something we want to pay very much attention to. Maybe this is not as important as, for example, yesterday we saw that 8 different species of fish have died out. We're talking about 0.7%, 0.3%. This is not very many people. And maybe we should not be preoccupied with it. So we give it a very small length. You see? It's not going to have a lot of significance for the whole compass. It's not that significant for the whole society. Talking about a marginal group of people. It's not a special group of people that, I don't know, maybe they have an identity. The water laborers, you know, I don't know. Maybe there's a group that is very special and maybe they have their own identity. But then we want to hear about their identity, not about the fact that they have to get water. Yeah.
I mean, maybe proportion, there are not so many, but I mean, we are talking about 16,000 people. Still quite low.
What, 0.7%?
0%. Yes, I mean, in percentage, probably it's a number which is a very low number.
Yeah.
But in terms of population, at the end, 16,000 people. Big number.
So then maybe they need to get together and say something more to us than that they have to carry a bucket of water every day. Because I mean, it's not. This is not. It's not that significant compared to a lot of other problems, social problems in the basin area. Not yet. Now, if it was a much bigger group, or if they had a particular identity that would come out. So what we do is if there are other statistics about the same people, you know, that they are, I don't know, the wives are all beaten, or they live very much below the poverty line, that they struggle if they have more disease, that they, you know, that there's a whole bunch of other things going on with that little group of people. Then we put all the statistics together on that group of people.
Okay.
And then the number, then it's not insignificant, but we put those statistics together and we give it some
Greater length.
yeah, so that together they get a length.
Okay.
You see? But that's a separate project. Right now we just have, there's a couple of people that have to get buckets of water. It's not enough. But now we also know that if we want these people to be represented in the compass significantly, if we want their voice to be heard, we need more information about them. We need to pull that together so that those people represented by maybe other kinds of people that share other difficulties, other social difficulties, such as poverty, such as disease, such as lack of access to cultural differences. Maybe their language and their way of life is being pushed away. Though we need to gather all those statistics together, put them together, so that as a group, that statistic can be part of the compass. It still might not be enough. It still might not be enough. But that's the work that we have to do. Yeah.
One question, Michelle. The question, this is very interesting, the question of scale.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
scale in the compass.
Exactly.
How do you approach it in the perspective of the importance of the potential importance of something that appears in the compass, but that in the particular moment probably it might not have statistical significance?
Right. So that's why if something does not have statistical significance, it's not going to make any difference to the overall compass at the moment. But we don't erase it. We don't cross it out. We leave it there because we're watching it. As it changes, It might
Perdón, no
diminish,
te escuché.
or it might grow, right? So as it
No,
grows,
I
we're
didn't.
watching that, and we're watching the changes. It might stay insignificant for a very long time. But the other thing that we can do is to do futures analysis, right? So we might also impose, artificially say, if we were to really invest in these people and really help them, how would that change the overall compass? Maybe it doesn't make a difference. Maybe it makes a good difference. Maybe it makes a bad difference. Yeah. So it takes us away from the wish spot, or it takes us towards the wish. And we want to find out, is this investment an important one versus, so these are very difficult decisions policymakers have to make. They don't have an infinite amount of money. They don't have an infinite amount of resources. They have to decide, do I invest here or do I invest there? Which one is going to bring me closer to the wish spot and which one takes me away? So we do that as a sort of futures analysis exercise, which we'll discuss in the next, in the final day of Friday, of where to go forward, how to really bring this forward.
Yeah, but I wait for that moment because I think this is very important for our project.
That's right.
Because imagine the moment where we have finished the actual compass.
Right, right.
Because it's for you to know that one of the actions that we want to make is to make this available for the communities and in a museum.
That's right. No, we discuss this tomorrow and the next day. Today, we're just doing the exercise
So I
of
just
angle and like.
Let's return to that very important point for the project, Friday.
Yes, yeah. So we're,
Ese es el día, eso es lo que vamos a hacer. Thank you, Mr.
so all of this will be sustained. Learning is a process. Learning is something, you can't learn everything all at once.
Yeah.
You have to digest one piece and then digest another piece. And the digestion is like your your body digestion. It doesn't happen instantly. So I am trying to let one piece sort of sink in, another piece sink in, and then we will start to see how it comes together. But to try to tackle everything all at the same time, it's not going to work. It will be too much information all at the same time, and you just get a mess. So right now, we're just working on individual. Now, so far, we've only looked at health statistics, but there's other aspects to society besides health. We also have security, and we also have culture and education. So I think we had one education one about students in primary school or something from outside. So maybe we can work with that statistic. Oops. Oh, hold on. We didn't even decide on the length. Or hold on. So we still have to decide on the length. So we have point. So again, this is one very insignificant statistic. So we don't want to give it very much length unless we accumulate a whole bunch of others around them. And we form a community or we form an investment project. Right, so you might form an investment project to help the very, very, very poor of the area. So you have to identify the group and you have to say it's worth investing in these people because it will bring you closer to the wish spot. And maybe it is worth it because it won't take very much money. You're usually investing in the very poor. It doesn't take very much. It's cheap for the government to do that. And yet it brings a big benefit. So that's how we would conceive of it, using the compass. But right now we only have the one statistic, which means nothing at all, which means you have to do more work for these people. So the length is going to be something like 0.1.
I was gonna say 1%.
Yeah, so it's 0.1. It's not the length is time.
It's 12 o'clock.
It's 12 o'clock. Okay. Okay, and we also want the angle. So so bringing water into the household is a normal thing. That helps society, it just helps you with your normal health, but it's labor intensive. And I don't know, but is it part of the social coherence? Do people go to the well at the same time and discuss things with each other, or is it something you do all by yourself? I don't know what the culture is.
Maybe both. Yeah, because we're also dealing with big urban cities where maybe that chattering.
So this sort of household is part of the big urban areas as well?
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
But in the peripheral areas,
Right.
there are people who live in
Yes, okay.
So it could be maybe an area. It really, it's more.
Okay, but we are talking about a household, not precarious in the sense of sleeping outside.
I don't know. We are
Yeah.
talking that they don't.
Yeah.
They have somewhere to sleep, but they
Mhm.
don't have the infrastructure.
Right. Right. So let's now talk about the angle.
Yeah.
So it does take a certain amount of labor, right? But it's not that much. I mean, and they're probably used to it. They do it every day, right? So they're fit enough to do this work. It takes some time. It takes more time than turning the tap, right? But it also is part of the social thing, right? This is part of their interaction with other people. So we're sitting in harmony between 0 and 120 degrees. Where do we put it?
Discipline. I know we're in discipline, right?
No, we decided it was in,
Harmony?
yeah, we decided it was discipline. You're right. So it's between 120 and 240.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So it's in discipline. Is it towards harmony or is it towards excitement? Is it something that's sort of normal that you have to do, even though it takes labor?
I think something normal.
I mean, it's sort of something you do every day, right? You need to get water every day. It's not something that's sort of you don't celebrate the day that you get water. Yeah.
What will determine if there is excitement or towards excitement?
Well, if something is in discipline and it's towards excitement, it would be sort of chaotic, right? If it's sort of something that's very vulnerable, very volatile. So if the water supply is often cut off, so there are days when we can't get any water, period.
Exactly.
Then it would be towards excitement.
That's what happens sometimes.
Okay.
They don't have, or they have access to bad quality water.
Right. Well, no, that quality of water is a separate thing. That's not a statistic. Okay, don't confuse
So
things.
if they don't have access, then
We're talking about 0.7% of the people who have to get water by using a bucket, and they take it home. They use the water for washing, for cleaning, for various things, and then they have to go out and they have to throw the bucket of water out. Those people.
Yeah.
Now, if you're right that if there are days when they go out to the common place to get water and there's no water, they go to another source. They go to the little stream. There's no water.
Yeah.
So there are days when they don't have water at all. So that brings it closer to the middle of discipline, maybe towards excitement, because it's rare for them to have access to water.
Yeah.
Okay. Does everyone understand that reasoning? Because of the type, so this is the quality of how they have access to water. It's not that it's a guaranteed source. If they could just go, they have to walk a few hundred yards and they fill it up and they bring it in. It's sort of normal. It becomes close to harmony. If it becomes more exciting if they turn on the pump and there's nothing there.
That happens only a few times every month.
A few times a month.
Yeah, So it's not, they do have access. Yeah, so I will put it more, just a little bit to harmony. Because
Right, so normally they have access. It's not that it's sort of one day they do, another day they don't, or for a whole month they have no access. So it's very rare that they don't have access. Okay, so then it's more towards, it's a daily task, more or less, and then sometimes they don't, they can't do it. So this brings us towards, so we have it in discipline. So we have it in discipline, but it should be towards harmony because it's a normal everyday task. It takes some labor, but it's not, they're used to it. I mean, they're fit enough to do this, otherwise they would have no water. So maybe we put it at 140, 150, 140, okay. Okay, so then let's now look for another statistic. So far we have,
Michelle,
yeah.
should we have a 5 minutes recess,
sure,
please?
sure.
No. Ya como
Okay,
están todos.
so we have 2 in harmony and 1 in discipline. We should at least find
Okay,
1
so
in
baño, ¿no?
excitement, okay? Because otherwise the compasses are kind of distorted. Okay, 5-minute break. We can turn the camera off.
Professor, I was gonna propose that we could recover the half hour after 1 o'clock. I don't know if everybody agrees, but I think we could recover that half time.
Es un proyectazo, esa, piensa, güey.
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind. Whatever you want, you guys decide. I don't care. I mean, they might want to have lunch. I don't know.
But Jerry,
I'm fine, yeah.